Thank you for joining the Sharpest College Football Podcast, our Week 9 preview. I am BuckMetrics, joined as always by Robert Martin. Robert, I have a question for you. In a few minutes, we'll get to a review of our plays for last week. We're at 46% for the year. Are you thinking of replacing me on the podcast?
No, I mean, for the podcast, we have the firing range. We haven't gotten into that yet for our picks yet, so we're still okay. There's probably a number. We haven't underperformed the spread by 3 scores yet in terms of our picks. I'm not sure what that number would be, but we haven't gotten there yet, so I think we're okay. But
I wasn't quite going the firing range. My point was, it sounds like you gave me the dreaded vote of confidence, so now I'm really in trouble. This is the dumb thing about college football social media. It's, you got the vote of confidence. What's the AD supposed to say? Yeah, we hate the guy. There's no right answer to this question then.
Yeah, what are you supposed to say? Be like, yeah, we're not happy. Be like, okay. Like, I love the immediate, this was the North Carolina thing, right? There was the immediate statement of, we've got, Bill Belichick's got our full vote of confidence, and Bill Belichick's like, I'm only committed to working here. Is this, okay? What else were you supposed to say? Be like, Bill Belichick's, yeah, I'm out after this year. What was the statement supposed to say?
Let's use another example. Kurt Signetti. Is he in any danger of being fired? He just signed a new contract.
No, probably not.
Okay, so he got a vote of confidence, right?
Yeah, he got a vote of confidence too. Yeah,
we have to stop with the vote of confidence. We need something better than that. We need people that are really good at parsing words, like the non-denial denials. I'm all about that. So, anyways, okay, thank you all for joining us. You might notice the setup is a little different here. I am out of town. We'll get to that in a moment. If you are new, this is our glossary. Go ahead and take a copy of this, screen grab it, save it where you save all your college football work. And if you are new, thank you for joining us. And if you are not new, if you're returning, as you know by now, you are, by definition, brilliant. This format's going to be a little different today. It's going to be just one episode. We do a really brief look back at Week 8, and then we preview Week 9 because I am on the road. I am in beautiful Sedona, Arizona with my wife and 2 dogs. But by the time this drops, I will be home, so this is not the time to go ahead and think you're going to finally rob my house. Not going to happen. And I live in a gated community, so not going to happen, guys. But it's beautiful out here. We love it. We had a nice hike this morning. The Chihuahua is just an expert-level hiker. She's in her element out here. And the fat black one, he lags a little bit. He needs a little help from time to time. I'm going to get confused here since the setup's a little different here. Let's look back on Week 8. Just a few bullet points here. That Friday night game, Miami losing to Louisiana. I want to reframe my question here. I had my question set up as, was this a Mario thing? I'm going to frame it a little different for you, Robert. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much was this loss a Mario thing?
This is the thing, right? I think the loss to Louisville, we straight up called this, right? We're like, they're due for a full-on Mario game. And I don't think it was. Like, it wasn't Mario's fault. The 3 interceptions definitely didn't help.
Okay.
4, sorry, my bad, 4. I miscounted. But it was bad. I thought it was really bad. The offense was bad. The defense was bad. Again, it was like a lot of people joked online, and it was a very poignant thing where, like, did like last year's Miami's defense show up? Is that what they were playing? Was this last year's Miami defense? And it looked in many ways like last year's Miami defense against this Louisville team. That is the worst we've seen them since last year, since the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Like, that's just a straight-up fact. And that's very concerning. Now, Louisville is among the better teams. I personally have them just outside of my top. I think at the time I had them just outside of my top 25. I now have them just inside my top 25. Okay, not a bad team, not an amazing team, but definitely not a bad team. I would say that when you like maybe try to extrapolate back the season, you say Notre Dame may have been weaker early in the season, but they're stronger now. We're going to talk about Notre Dame in a second. But like when you look at the rest of the wins, it's okay. Florida, they just fired their head coach. USF, they are still a G5 team. Florida State, they have not won an ACC game since, I think it was 20. Did they win one last year? Yeah, they beat Cal last year. They beat Cal last year.
We were both on Cal. Congratulations to us.
Yeah, so the last time they won an ACC game was in 2024. Barely. So
it's been over a year. It's been over a calendar year, though.
Yeah, not a sign of strength there. So basically, Miami's best win is Notre Dame, which is a team that is clearly better since then, and USF. So what are we doing here? This is supposed to be a really good Miami team, and they have looked really good, but maybe they're a little overhyped here. And I think they're good. They are a good team, but maybe that defense is not as good as we thought. I think this might be the first kind of thing. Also, on the flip side, Carson Beck, right? He looked horrible in that game. Now, whether or not, we have no idea why he looked that bad. That's the worst he's looked all year. But maybe this was just the defense was overhyped and the offense was overhyped, and that's where we got this, and we'll have to see them. I will say that I grabbed Miami because I remember looking every week. I look at some of the odds, like the season odds, and I saw like Miami plus 950 to miss the playoffs. There wasn't even a number for them to make the playoffs. It was just like no to make the playoffs, no plus 950. I'm like, if they lose against Louisville, that number is really high, and I bet that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was great. That's now halved now. That's plus 400, which is still too high, by the way. But this is the thing. It's like now, like they could lose another game. They could like you're now in a scenario now where if this Miami team say they go undefeated and say Georgia Tech goes undefeated, they lose to Georgia Tech in the ACC championship game. Are they really going to put in Miami over a two-loss Oregon, over a two-loss Notre Dame? Are like actually maybe they probably would have to think theoretically put them over in two-loss Notre Dame, but there's a line here. Are they going to put them in over a two-loss Missouri? I don't think so. I think they're just going to say the ACC gets one bid, that's it. So especially if Miami loses something else down the line. So I think this might. I think it was. I didn't. I just to answer your question. I didn't see a defining like Mario screwed this up moment. I didn't see that.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw this as a whole team thing, which means we are still waiting for that. That still will
Exactly.
happen. That hasn't happened yet, and that's a scary thing where that's hanging over the things like that moment hasn't happened yet, but it could happen soon.
Yeah, I was gonna say on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say it's about a 2 or 3 that this is a Mario thing. Every team has one or two where they just come out flat at the beginning, and I think it was more a Carson Beck thing. So the good news is the bad news is that yeah, this wasn't a Mario thing, so that's still due to happen. Sorry, Miami fans. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. There's so many scenarios. There's so many teams that basically have improbably good records at this point that it's really hard to do scenarios all the way through. It's really tough. Just like your Virginias who are undefeated in conference play and these kind of things. Just once you start down those rabbit holes, it gets really tricky. But it's amazing how many brand names are on the outside looking in right now, like a Miami, like a right now to the extent they're, I don't know. 2 weeks ago they were the brand name in the Big 12, Texas Tech. We'll get to them in a second, but it's just interesting. All right, takeaway from the USC Notre Dame game. As I posited this time last week, USC hasn't turned that corner yet. They were competitive, but they were driving to take the lead in the fourth quarter until we had a really weird play call, and I won't get into that. Just your mileage will vary on how much you like that call. But USC turns it over at midfield, and Notre Dame really just SC's offense was really good against Notre Dame. The defense was basically more of that what we had seen the last year, and up at Illinois to a degree as well. So I think there's a little severe overreaction here. I think we've seen too much overreaction the last 2 weeks on USC. It was like, oh yeah, they're back. No, and okay, now they're the same team as last year. No, I think I'm going to really temper that reaction because I think Notre Dame is a serious title contender. After they lost in their opener, I grabbed a little more of them to win the national title. And after they lost their second game, I grabbed a little more. And that's the closest I've actually come to betting against my team since the 1992 Freedom Bowl. Shout out to those who remember that. I think that was before Robert was born. But I still feel the same way about this team the way I felt at the beginning of the season. Everybody had questions, but to me they had the least amount of questions except for the quarterback position. And CJ Carr has been exceptional this year, especially for a freshman. And I think that's one thing that people are missing about USC is this was by far CJ Carr's worst game. USC just randomly is able to do one thing on defense, but not both. And they were able to stop the pass, and they were not able to stop a really good running offense here. USC, they might sneak in the playoff. We'll see. It's all going to come down to Eugene and don't do something stupid otherwise. And I think Notre Dame, I think I have to put him in that top tier of actual contenders. I think we've got basically like 4, maybe 5. I don't want to. We'll get into the SEC part of it right now, but I think your top 3 in the Big Ten are definitely title contenders, and you've got to put them right there with those guys, right?
I agree with that. I think if you're Notre Dame, my model is now seeing it too. I think my model has Notre Dame is clearly in the top 10. I think probably closer to top 5 if I'm not mistaken. We'll see the slides later. But my model is very clearly believing in Notre Dame right now. And they've clearly figured out the offense. The defense is pretty good too. This team is now, and Jeremiah Love again just crushed USC. He's going to have 4 more games. I think it's 4. It's either 4 or 5. I can't remember how many games Notre Dame has left.
I think I have 5 more.
Yeah, 5 more. So he's got 5 more games to just absolutely crush some teams. Again, if he keeps racking up 200 yards a carry, and if Alabama stumbles again, because their schedule down the stretch is not completely easy either. Talk a bit more about them in a second, but like he could be in that Heisman conversation as well. This team is very quickly seeming to me very similar to last year's, if not better than last year's. How much last year was this team held back by Riley Leonard's kind of being okay at throwing, and that was about it. He was like okay at throwing, he was more running, but I think they were limited by that because, again, if you had that massive passing attack, you can open up a lot more running for Jeremiah Love. And this is the thing. This team, in my opinion, is rapidly becoming better than last year's team. I think we're rapidly getting to a point where I'd say this team is better than last year's. And that team didn't win a national championship game, but they came close. They got there. They had to beat a pretty good, like they took down the SEC champion and at that point a good Penn State team to get there. This team could be pretty scary, and I think if this team wins out, I'm fairly sure they're going to be in the playoff. I think they're going to say they lost to Texas A&M, who at this point very well could be the SEC champion. They could very easily be the SEC champion. Texas A&M could. Or they could like barely miss out on the SEC championship game. Miami should be a contender in the ACC championship. They could be in the championship game or maybe just lose it or something like that. So I'd say that, and they're going to have a win against USC. USC could either have 2 or 3 losses. They're going to beat Boise, who could be the Mountain West champ. So they actually already did beat Boise. So this team could actually, I think this team is definitely going to, if this team wins out, they make the playoff. And I think that this team is a contender. And they're not going to get a bye. But I'm fairly sure we're going to be betting on them round 1 come December something. I'm not sure what date that is. Yes.
Yeah, agree. I don't know if you remember when we did the preview of the playoff last year, they stuck out as having statistically the weakest quarterback position by far. And this was in a field that had Cade Klubnik too, boys and girls. So it wasn't like it was a bunch of all-stars. And if you remember the graphic from last week, both teams in that USC Notre Dame preview had Apex Pluses of over 200. Once you adjust for strength of opponents. It's a really different team. Their defense is improving. Their defense is not as suffocating as last year. But, hey, guess what? You don't have to basically hold opponents to like 23 points now in order to win. It's a really different dynamic to your point. Yeah, I agree. As somebody that holds a Jeremiah Love, a very small Heisman ticket, I appreciate you mentioning that. I think there's a path there. I think that path is going to be obstructed a little bit by the quarterback at Tennessee. My gosh, no. Take 2. The quarterback at Alabama. Nice win for them. It was interesting. Just nice wins for all of the, basically, if you will, the top teams of the SEC. Formful, if you go by the point spreads. I think we've talked about it a little bit. The best teams are in the Big Ten, but the most good teams are in the SEC. Look, and this is a fluid situation. I think we're probably out of it where it changes from week to week. The SEC is really deep, but how many teams do we think can really win the playoff? You're talking about you need to be elite, and you need to beat 1 or 2 column 1 coaches. Going back to that graphic we had in our second preseason pod. I'm seeing basically 1.5 teams. I think Alabama definitely can. DeBoer's got the stature and the pedigree. He's got one of the best quarterbacks. They can't run the ball that great, but I think that they worked around that before at Washington. I want to say Georgia again. They keep on getting away with it, like the evil wrestling guy who cheats and 1, 2, 3s. I think that's it. I think the other teams they're just not as elite as you have to beat in Indiana and Oregon, or an Ohio State and a Notre Dame. I don't think any other teams can pull off 2 in a row there.
Yeah, I was on Ole Miss last week. That was, I think, officially a bad beat on the spread and the money line. I think we can safely say that. It's very rare that a team scores a touchdown on every drive until the fourth quarter and then loses.
Yeah, I was going to say if you maybe force a punt,
yeah,
then I could see it's a bad beat, but you didn't force a punt. Georgia scored every time they have the ball.
Yeah, and people are like, oh, you can't give Georgia, you got to take out Georgia. Okay, they scored on pretty much every drive except for I think, won in the fourth, and then they lost, and they didn't even cover a 6.5 spread. Like, it's that's a horrible beat for terms of betting, but also people are like, "Oh, see, Georgia's just too good." It's like, no, they're not that good. They almost lost to Ole Miss very clearly. They almost lost to Tennessee. They actually did far worse against Tennessee than Bama did. Now, okay, fine, home versus away, whatever. But Bama was clearly in control of that game the whole game, and they didn't let Tennessee get back into it like Georgia did in the second half. And in Tennessee, Georgia had another. Did they Georgia have another scare? Oh no, they lost to Bama. They straight up lost to Bama. So Bama is clearly better than Georgia. Like any sort of ranking system you use, Bama is better than Georgia. Now remember last year down the stretch, Bama imploded with losses to Oklahoma there. That really hurt them last year. Reminiscent of kind of Kalen DeBoer and what he did in his year in Washington there, the Pac-12 championship year, where they collapsed down this line as well. They didn't lose any of those games because they were playing against like horrific teams, but they made those very close. So I'm not 100% buying Bama's completely out of the woods yet. They still have LSU, which LSU is a thing, and it's a kind of beaten and wooten at LSU, so you don't want to do that. And they also have Oklahoma, which Oklahoma is desperate too. So they're not completely on a glide path here to the playoff. But yeah, in terms of SEC teams that can win, I think it's just Bama. Missouri is up there. They're not completely out of it. My model kind of seems to hate Texas A&M. I'm not completely sure why it does, but it does, and I suspect there's reasons for that. I think it's just like the teams that Texas A&M have beat have just been not good, and I think that's why. But I think there's lots more chances for Texas A&M to make that up. Lots more chances for them to make it up. So I suspect they will be up there too, but I've got to say the most competitive teams. If you told me to pick the three teams that I think could win it all, I think it's Ohio State, Indiana, and then Oregon is just slightly behind those two. But other than that, I'd still say Bama is clearly behind those three.
Yeah, and I've pulled up Georgia's. Let me just read these to you real quick. So they've beaten Marshall, Austin Peay, Tennessee in overtime. They beat Kentucky, Auburn by 10 in a really ugly game, and then they beat Ole Miss. And then they lost to Alabama. I don't see a single game on there that just really makes me think, okay, if they just play like this, they can make it to the title game. I just don't see that on Georgia's resume. Oregon doesn't have the big win, but my gosh, they vaporize kind of mortal teams so much that you can't say I can't see it. Obviously, Indiana going to Eugene. Ohio State just doesn't seem to have a flaw. And Notre Dame, we talked about, is just a really different and a really well-coached team that's still going with probably maybe the best trajectory in terms of just like where the arrow's pointing on them. And I just don't see it here for Georgia. You can only get away with it for so long. I keep on going back to that, but it just really feels like that. It's funny, during that Ole Miss game, I remember I posed the question to you and Duck on Island Time. I said, Ole Miss offense, Ole Miss defense, Georgia offense, Georgia defense. Which unit cracks first? And Duck said Georgia defense, and it's like they never showed up. At least Ole Miss forced a couple of field goals at the beginning. They can't. They need to play something totally different, and I don't know if they can. Now, it's just weird that they find a way. I don't know if that's Mike Bobo, like he's just trying to prove some kind of point with weird play calling, and all of a sudden when it gets push comes to shove, he tries something else. But I don't know. It's that's the mystery team. I don't know. Let's just say we randomly just took the top 12 right now in the playoff. What kind of number would you need on Georgia to say, okay, I'll take a stab at them to win the playoff? I'm going to write a number down here.
I think it's got to be 10-1, more than 10-1 at least.
You're way more generous than me. I actually wrote down 45.
45 is a bit much, but I can see
Really?
the point though. Like,
So if it's 30, you would say, yeah, I can't pass that up? I could pass that up.
I'd say the fair price has to be 10-1. I'm sure it's not. I'm sure in the books it's 6-1, but it's probably at least
To win the playoff?
30-1. I think is too much, but 20-1 I think is probably more correct. Because it's like I take Ohio State over them, obviously. I take Indiana over them. I take Oregon over them. I definitely take Notre Dame over them. I'd probably take Miami over them. I'd probably take Big 12 champion to be named later over them. And Georgia Tech, I've already bet Georgia Tech over them in the thing, so I'm already taking Georgia Tech over them. Yeah, actually, that's probably That's probably, yeah, about 20 to 30 to 1 actually. It should be that. It's not that, but it should be that because it's just they're not. I didn't think Ole Miss was that good. Ole Miss was massively overvalued, but I think they're overvalued because Georgia is just still so overvalued too, right? Like it's just they're not. I think the people when they rank stuff, and ours are not susceptible to this. They're like, we have to rank some SEC teams up there. So we can't just do Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, and then like Oregon 3. We have to start ranking some SEC teams somewhere. So okay, we'll put this team and then this team. But see that's the point, right? It's just
It's
there's
the old
like
somebody
well,
has to be second gag.
yeah, like we have to start ranking. We have to put some SEC teams in there. So I guess we have to rank Bama and then Texas A&M, and Ole Miss is undefeated. So I guess they have to be top 5. It's like, no, they don't have to be top 5 or something like that. It's like they're not that good comparative to everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is the time of year when I've asked this in a couple of games, and it seems to always be Utah, where we have our objective numbers and that's it. But if we're talking me, you, and Duck, I think this is a really good time to say what's their best win, and I think for Ole Miss it might be Tulane, which kind of says something there. So yeah, interesting. SEC is fluid, really fluid. It's going to be interesting because we could see Vandy get a bid, and then we've also got. We'll get to our ratings in a couple minutes here, but we've also got a divergence between kind of the standings and the general consensus and our power ratings. At least one example here, which is could at least speak to some things getting fouled up a little bit as we go down the second half of the season. All right, Cincinnati and BYU are tied for first in the Big 12, which is what I'm trying to pull up right here, which is interesting. Tied for third outside of those two, there's a really interesting group of 3 teams. Arizona State, who I will point out their only loss was at Utah, quarterbacked by, we have to, what his name needs to be. It's not yes, that Jeff Sims. It needs to be the Swinging Gate, because if you remember when Dillingham didn't have a quarterback before, a couple of years ago, he went to the Swinging Gate for, yeah. I think that Jeff Sims wasn't much better than the Swinging Gate, so we'll just call him the Swinging Gate Jeff Sims. We also have Texas Tech in that group, and how about this? Houston, Willie Fritz, surprisingly 6-1 overall, 3-1 in conference play. So you've got Cincy and BYU, the only 2 undefeateds in conference play, both at 4-0. BYU has to play Cincinnati, and they play Texas Tech, both on the road. That'll be tricky. I'm just going to ask you this. There's a bunch of scenarios, and I want to put it to you. Do you think that there's a plausible path for the Big 12 to get 2 playoff bids?
You're going to need Miami to screw up a lot more, though. If they lose another game somewhere, and I don't know if there is another game they could lose on the schedule, I don't think. But if they did, then there's a path, I think. Because it would have to be something along the lines of, let me think here. It's tough because you'd need to have a 1-loss team that didn't make the conference championship game for a stupid reason. And then we can't put in, it's going to be between like a Big 10 team with 2 losses and like a 1-loss non-champion Big 12 team or something like that. Like, it's going to have to be like the team that wins the ACC is going to have either undefeated or 1 loss, which I think actually they all have 1 loss now. And
so
it's
let's
like,
say
okay,
it's like a Miami or a Georgia Tech.
Yeah, like
against.
Yeah, if Georgia Tech wins at like if say it's like 12-0 Georgia Tech or 12-1 Georgia Tech, whatever. Maybe they lose to Georgia. I think they beat Georgia, but whatever. Because it's better if they beat Georgia. If they beat Georgia and then they beat Miami, then it's okay. Now Miami has 2 or maybe 3 losses, so they're done. SMU would have to lose another game in the scenario as well. But like then basically it's if losing the championship game gets you the 2nd or 3rd loss, then you're fully out. And then it would be like, okay, then the underdog won the Big 12 championship game, so then like maybe that was like Texas Tech's 2nd loss. So Texas Tech then is like X2, but their loss was in the championship game into Arizona State at home. And like maybe Arizona State went to the championship game too. And there's some scenarios where it's like a Texas Tech team that's only lost to Arizona State and
yeah,
like
maybe just Arizona State.
Yeah,
maybe that's the way. It's okay. We lost the same team twice.
Yeah,
that doesn't seem like 2 then, right?
And then Arizona, and then it's okay. It's either this 2-loss team or like a Michigan team that beat Ohio State, maybe, or like a Michigan team that beat that, or maybe it's like that, or Oklahoma, or Texas A&M, but I think in that case
Yeah.
the committee is going to probably pick the SEC team though.
Oklahoma's there with that schedule. They need to make it. You have
Yeah.
to with that. I think that's going to come down to that's what's interesting. I don't know if you've got the quote quality win capability here in the Big 12. That
Yeah.
you still have a lot of it. Like even a USC, if they win out now, if that includes a win at Oregon, I don't know how you pass up that team with 2 losses.
But
I
then
think
at the
that's
same
where it's
time,
going to get really tough for them.
so play that out in reverse too, right? Say USC wins out, because I was thinking about this too. Say USC wins out and they beat Oregon. Okay, their 2 losses. Their 2 losses are to Notre Dame and Illinois. Okay. Well, then in that scenario, assuming Oregon beats Washington in the final week, Oregon is X2 now with only losses to USC and Indiana, a team that's playing for the conference champion. You have to put both of them in. You can't put only one of them in, because what are you going to just put USC in? Because that's the thing, right? So this is now where it's okay. And then where is Illinois in that case? Because Illinois has lost to Ohio State, and are they only one loss?
The more
Indiana. There you go.
That's
Indiana
right,
too.
yeah.
So it's like, then where, if Illinois is X2, where are you putting? Oh, they lost to the 2 top teams in the conference. So this is where this gets very interesting with some of this. Like it gets very complicated with, and it would have to be like, how big was those wins? And then like at a certain point, do you then say, okay, Oregon didn't if USC does beat Oregon, then you say, okay, Oregon lost to Indiana and they lost to USC. Their best win was Penn State. Their best win was Rutgers. What was their best win? And then maybe you can make the case for like a Texas Tech that's only lost to Arizona State to be above them, because again, the Texas Tech team would have beaten BYU or like whatever. So there's some arguments, but it's gonna be tough, right?
Yeah. We as we go through this, we kind of like SEC fans, but what's the biggest? Let's just think about what their premier team before last week was Texas Tech, and before they played Utah, it's like they hadn't played anybody, so there's no out of conference game that they can point to. And this is a fun conference, but boy, what's the biggest? I don't know. This is some homework for maybe next week. What's the Big 12's biggest non-conference win?
Was it SMU?
Beating
Baylor beating SMU?
Boy, that's no. Those are yeah.
I know, it feels like SMU shouldn't be in the ACC, but it is.
Yeah, gosh, I just can't think of a big one here.
Because it's even because Arizona State lost to Mississippi State.
Cincinnati lost to Nebraska. They're one of the undefeated teams. Yeah, ASU lost to Mississippi State.
BYU play anyone, I don't think.
I mean, there's Iowa State beats Iowa. Great. There's not TCU beat North Carolina. That you're supposed to do that. I don't know. I'll have to think about that and look for the biggest. I think I'm just gonna maybe when I have more time, I'll just line up like the biggest out of conference wins graphic for each conference. I think that'd be interesting. Okay, yeah. So I guess it sounds like as we talk through it, Texas Tech really needs to win out here, and if they win out, then because they will have beaten BYU,
so they knock BYU.
Then they get the head-to-head. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. All right. Finally, now I've seen the backlash to the backlash, as Bill Simmons calls it, with Arch, because you had the backlash with Arch about he stinks. So now I saw one I think it was on Twitter, some post saying, "Hey, look at these 3 throws that Arch had against Oklahoma. You can't tell me he's not a good quarterback." Robert, if we're focusing on 3 throws, I don't want to say we can go all the way down to Gavin Wimsatt, but we could go pretty deep into the American Conference to have that kind of discussion. Can we not?
Yeah, I'm fairly sure DJ Lagway had a couple of good throws last year, right? You can make a lot of cases for quarterbacks based off of 3 throws. Right now, maybe not all of them are in the same game, but again, like the problem is, I think with Arch Manning is that, oh great, he had 3 good throws. What about the other 20 some odd he threw in that game? Right? Are they NFL caliber? Is it NFL caliber where he missed the guy by 5 yards to the right? This is the problem. And I even said, remember we said last week, I said this was not a win of Texas. This was a loss by Oklahoma, specifically their defense, to allow all this to happen, and that if Batir wasn't ready, he shouldn't have been playing in this game. And he was a lot better this week against someone. I can't remember.
South Carolina.
South Carolina, yeah. But this is the thing: is if this was what you had, they looked horrible against Kentucky. They looked like they were going to lose that game against Kentucky, and for a while they should have. And this is the thing. And this team is. I'm so happy I have Texas at plus 190, plus 200 to miss the playoff. It's like it's great. It's just like cool. It's gonna cash. It's just someone's gonna finish this off. I don't know who it is, but
Yeah.
someone's gonna do it. Because the schedule, rest of the schedule, rest of the way is not easy. Someone's gonna do it. But this is the thing. It's just like we could talk about this next year. I'm sure we will talk about this next year. I'm sure Archie Manning is going to be super hyped next year. Maybe there'll be some changes in the team. I don't know. But this team just like screams to me like
Which
Alamo
team?
Bowl or something.
Where's
Texas.
what? No, Texas. So which team drafts him? You
Oh,
skipped that
yeah.
part. I did.
I'm not sure. I don't think he's going to the NFL next year. He's definitely not going to the NFL next year. The question is he going to transfer out of Texas? That'd be the question.
Nah, come on.
No,
To
stay
what-
there.
That's interesting. To Ole Miss.
That's a whole question of where is Lane Kiffin?
There you go. Florida.
So if Lane Kiffin's at Florida,
He
then
goes to Florida for Link. All right, that's the next parlor game. We'll have to figure out is like
we
where
have
does
to
Arch
talk a
play
lot
next
more
year?
about. We don't have time this
Yeah.
week. We're going to talk a lot more about coaching searches next week and all this stuff. So next week.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Cool. Good wrap up of week 8 at the high level. Didn't get to the G5, but you know what? I'm in Sedona. My time is limited this week. Sorry, everybody. Okay. Our week 8 results. As I said, we are consistent. We have been at 46% from basically when the dual model plays dropped, and we have stayed there. Ugh. I don't know. Not great. The totals are breaking even. It's the sides here. Not as many plays on the side this week. That's the good news. But before we get to the sides, let's go ahead and look at the power ratings. I actually called an audible here. I got tired of arguing with the BuckMetrics model, so I've just audibled to the Athena ratings here because I didn't want to basically say, you know what, I don't think Old Dominion is really number 12 anymore after giving up like 1,000 points over the last 2 weeks. So I'm going with my Athena ratings here, and that actually it lines up with my point about the USC and Notre Dame game. Notre Dame, Athena has it number 1. You will remember, Robert, that last week your model had been really lagging on Notre Dame, and finally they popped up. I think our model saw that as something of a playoff caliber game, if you will, and it felt like that for basically until that weird, to be nice, the weird play call. We'll just keep it as that. So not a whole bunch of disagreement between our models here until you get to, and this is what's really instructive to me. I've got this stretch here of teams here. I rank them 13 through 16. South Carolina, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Kansas. These, to Athena, are top 16 teams, and your model has them much, much lower here. And I like your model in this case because the thing that I see about these 4 teams is they are completely one-sided. South Carolina is all about their defense, as is Oklahoma at this point. Arkansas doesn't play defense, and neither does Kansas. So I think that your model tends to see the fatal flaws in this team that my model just papers over, as it's basically just says, what are they on offense, what are they on defense, adjust for venue, okay, add them all together, and you get X. If you look at those 4 teams, your model has Oklahoma the highest, but still outside of the top 25. Do you see any of those that you think are underrated by your model in that 13 to 16 group?
I think I actually really like where Oklahoma and Arkansas are specifically. I'll point out those two. Oklahoma, because they can't run the ball. They're having huge problems running the ball, and my model is really able to like drill down and be like, that is going to kill you specifically. And I think I really like the model for putting them where they are. The model had been weirdly fading them for a while, and the model had been kind of like, they're not that good, they're not that good, they're not that good, and then they did. Now, they were supposed to be better than Texas, they just were not better than Texas, and then the model was like, oh, okay, you're really bad then, we're just going to drop you like a stone there. So I like that. Arkansas, conversely, they're actually not that bad, right? This is a team that lost by 3 to Tennessee, and then they lost by, 3 or 4 to Texas A&M? So this team is very competitive against some of these top SEC teams.
Exactly.
They're just not winning these games. That's the thing. And my model sees that. The AP poll and coaches poll don't see that. Your model sees that as well, though, right? So this is the thing where it's like, hey, this team isn't that bad. And if this team starts winning a couple of games, they could easily get up in here into the top 32. Now, I don't think they're eligible. I don't think they're probably not going to get to a bowl game. But this team is a lot better than it actually seems. So I would not be that far out of them. I like Florida State at 45. That makes a lot of sense. And South Carolina, they're just not that good this year. I think The only one that I think is really weird to me is I think Texas A&M. My model's kind of weirdly low on them. I'm not sure specifically why that is. I think it's because UTSA has turned out not so great. Some of their earlier season games haven't turned out great. They did barely beat Arkansas. They did barely beat Auburn. So I suspect it's just they've been playing a couple of close games and the model's been hurting them for that. But that 22 is still an improvement from last week for them. So they're slowly being pushed up. I think this week against LSU is going to be interesting. My model has LSU as favorite in that game. I don't necessarily believe that, but if Texas A&M beats LSU, I'd expect them to go a lot higher in the model and LSU to go a lot lower. There might be the bubble popping moment there for LSU.
Yeah, and that's the team I was referring to about the one that could really upset it without being much of an upset. Our models both have LSU in the top 14, and I don't think that means that they're going to finish there, but it seems that they're very capable of basically kicking one or two other teams out of the playoffs that had a solid path there. One other thing, I don't know if you can run this. I would love to see if you have a detail of like where, how do I say this, of South Carolina's record, like who beats them and who do they beat. I want to measure that against where I would have them because I'm really curious where that difference is. So next time you run, I don't know if you can just like spit out a side job or something, but that would be really interesting to me, specific to South Carolina.
I have that. I can send that to you. Yeah, I think
Okay.
I have. So basically, what I do have is I have winning percentages. So I have them a winning percentage of 0.39. So that means they beat 39% of the FBS teams.
But do you have a breakdown? I'd love to see a breakdown of like their wins against their record against all the other teams.
Yeah, I have that in. It's somewhere. I'll find it to you.
Okay.
I'll send have that.
Yeah, that would be interesting. And as you were describing Arkansas, they're basically the Air Force of the SEC. It's like they don't. If they tackle, it's 12 yards downfield, but they seem a lot better than their records if you watch them because they're just aside from Notre Dame, they contend in every game. And Notre Dame number 1 in mine, number 6 in yours. Okay. Top offenses. Speaking of Arkansas, the Air Force of the SEC overtook USC, more than a point and a half above USC now. By the way, do you know the name of this mascot here for Arkansas?
Oh, is that Woo Pig or
No,
something? No,
that's what they say. His name is Tusk.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so he has 2 of them. I guess he's named after just one of them. The other thing that stick out is to me Michigan top 12. I think Michigan's game last week was more like it, where they just were able to just do the methodical, just bloodletting, if you will, of the opponent, and not really just the quick deep frying. And Utah jumps into the top 20 here, which is interesting to me because I had made the point that I wasn't really sold on Devin Dampier. They lost to BYU. What's interesting is they really, from a metric standpoint, they had a better than 50% chance of winning that game. Just a little bad luck for the Utes. And Illinois in the top 20 as well, which is interesting. They've got that improbably good passing game in Champaign. So anything stand out here to you?
No, I think this is pretty much what I'd expect. I think Utah might be a little high. Their offense has struggled in a couple of these games. In Michigan too, to some extent, but other than that, everything seems pretty much in line with what I'd expect for the rankings. Yeah.
Okay. Then the defensive side of the ball. By the way, do you know Notre Dame? I think you kind of look at Notre Dame did very well against USC, holding USC to 24. They held Arkansas really way down. So Athena says, hey, this is the best defense around. And normalized for their 2 losses, A&M's got a functionally good defense or offense, not a great offense. Miami's is, notwithstanding last week, okay. I think the way that South Florida since, or how do I know? Forget that. What was the other one? Boise's kind of rebounded offensively as well. I don't think they're great, but being the, how do I say this? You're going to really get a lot of points for being by far your opponent's lowest scoring game. And they have a lot of those on their resume. So interestingly, they shoot up to number 1 in Athena. That's one that stands out here. Also, do you know the name of this mascot here? He's an Irish guy, apparently.
No, I don't know who that is.
No, neither do I. Just wanted to put him there just as a just as a little homage to the Fighting Irish here. Yeah, Notre Dame number 1. I can buy it. I guess my question for you is, can you actually buy that?
A little bit. Their defense doesn't seem to be that good. I'd still say Ohio State and probably Indiana have better defenses, but it's up there.
Again, okay, let me just go back to this. Let's go back one slide. Where are you? There you go. These two teams, they by far held them to their lowest outputs offensively. I think you've got to give that a ton of credence, right?
That's true. Yeah,
I
they
mean,
the number 1 and 2. That is true.
yeah, these are two balanced offenses too, which you kind of have to be at that point. Okay, that's the thing that stands out to me, and that kind of goes to the why I think that they are legitimate contender as well for the playoff. Okay, week 9 games. Like I said, there's only two dual model plays. Not easy to say. One of them, BYU at Iowa State. Iowa State favored. I'm not sure about this market disrespect for BYU. I mentioned it last week that I don't know why they're overlooked. Again, maybe it's just because their quarterback is a fourth grader. I guess that's it. We've got roughly the same passing offense efficiency here. BYU running the ball a lot better. The real difference to me is Iowa State's got a nice pass defense and an okay run defense. BYU is an exceptional pass defense. I think that makes a difference here. I think people overlook just like how physical BYU is, and it's funny because when BYU was really getting credit, everybody understood the narrative about their linemen are like 24 years old because of the Mormon mission thing. And I don't know if people just forget that or what, but I don't understand this. All three of our models, the BuckMetrics and the Athena, and your model, all have BYU straight up here, and Iowa State's getting 2.5. I'm comfortable with this. Iowa State's fine. I think that, but look, these are mediocre numbers right here. This is just basically whatever. This is very much average for a Big 12 team, and I just think BYU's just like significantly better. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. My model has it, and I'm surprised this is where it is. BYU is just a better team, and Iowa State they look good initially, but they're just not that good this year. They're not like they looked amazing against Kansas State, and it turns out Kansas State was also not that good, except that one time they played TCU for some reason. Other than that, they weren't really a good team this year. Yeah, BYU is just a better team. I think this is now maybe this is this a look ahead. Does BYU play Texas Tech next week? I don't think so. But other than that, I can't think of much reason to pick BYU to pick Iowa State here.
Yeah, let me see. BYU. Who do they have week after next? Iowa State, and then Texas Tech. But there's a week off between the two.
Oh, okay, then that's yeah.
Yeah.
Do this, get to the bye week. There you go.
Yep. And maybe there's a little bit too, as these conferences have settled themselves out to just be more competitive. I've remarked on this a couple times. There almost seems to be like an NFL element to some of these point spreads, and this almost feels like an NFL kind of line where it's okay, 3.5 for the home field, and give BYU 1 point for being a better team. It almost feels like that's how mechanically the number was arrived at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The other dual model play, Michigan giving 14 at Michigan State. I'm very comfortable with this. Let's just start with this. If Michigan's got where are you? There we are. If Michigan's got the better passing attack and is equally as explosive in the passing attack, this one's over. 14 just seems like a gift. You've got, apologies here, 10 point something on defense here, but you've got a really good offense and defense here on Michigan's side. Michigan State's in the bottom quartile of the conference on both sides of the ball. My model has Michigan by 21. Athena has them by 20. Your model has them by 21 as well. So this is an easy play for me. A lot of discontent in Michigan State too. Now, maybe there's some of that whole rivalry game thing that's going on here, but I think that only goes so far. This just seems like a really, I don't know if it's a bad matchup. It just seems like a mismatch here.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. This seems like way too few points. It seems like it should be more. Again, it's really funny that like USC beat Michigan pretty comfortably, and then Michigan turns around and crushes Washington, which basically says that Washington is extremely vulnerable to a really good defense. And then now we play like a mediocre team, and now it's closer-ish. But it's just, is Michigan good or not? Like, one week they look bad, next week they look really good. So I'm gonna bet on Michigan being good this is a close rivalry game. This is not a very long distance. I think this is now Michigan saying, okay, we've got to, if we're gonna get to the playoff, which is still a possibility here. If you win out and you beat Ohio State, yeah, you're probably going to the playoff, right? So there's some ways they could still do this. So I'm gonna go with Michigan. I'm gonna take Michigan here. I think they should be able to walk all over Michigan State, because Michigan State does not look particularly good either. So
yeah, and one kind of little checkpoint I ask is like, how would this fall apart? And I think that I think this falls apart for Michigan if Underwood is green on the road again. Green at a team whose home team uniforms are green. I think that's the path here, but geez, it's not. This is not a pass defense that's really going to, I don't think, pose much of a threat. This is not a good Big Ten pass defense here in Michigan State. All right, we're comfortable with that. Now I've got a few games where basically they're total plays just for my model, not yours. And they're fun games for the most part to talk about. Oklahoma given 2.5 to Ole Miss, which is interesting. You talked about you don't believe in Ole Miss as much. I thought they're a bit overrated. I still, as I pointed out a couple weeks ago, I still have questions about Oklahoma's offense. Mateer was better. I don't know, maybe Ole Miss forces a punt this game. Unlike last week. I think Ole Miss, I'm talking about it. That's a brutal back-to-back, man. Going to Georgia and then at Oklahoma back-to-back. A lot of back-to-back road games in conference this year, which is surprising with the two bye weeks. I don't know how that's happening so much. This is just a fascinating matchup in terms of the Oklahoma defense and Ole Miss offense. That's really, my model is saying that basically Oklahoma's defense is going to be the difference here and really just shut down Ole Miss. I've got Ole Miss scoring 18, as does Athena. You've got them scoring 28. I've got this as an underplay. You don't have it by as much, but do have the total of 51, which is below the posted total of 53. Interesting in that my eyes tell me to believe in Ole Miss offense a little more than what you've mentioned, and then it's your model has Ole Miss scoring 10 more points than my models do.
Yeah, basically, yeah. I think I'm on Ole Miss here. My model still dislikes Oklahoma. I think it's interesting Oklahoma is favored here. I think Ole Miss is the better play, but my model likes Ole Miss, and I think Ole Miss is going to be pissed off after that Georgia game. Not the furthest distance Mississippi to Oklahoma, so you're playing Oklahoma here, but
actually I'm playing the under.
You're playing the under.
Now.
Okay, to be fair, okay, you're playing the under. So my model doesn't love the under, but I could definitely see it here. Oklahoma does have a good defense. They're still a good-ish defense. Ole Miss's defense is not bad either. I could see an underplay here, but my model just doesn't believe in Oklahoma's offense getting it done. My model definitely believes in Ole Miss's offense. It just doesn't believe in Oklahoma's offense to get up to the mid-20s. And to be fair, if I had your total, this would be a very close game. But your defense, you have, I think, Oklahoma's defense a lot better than it actually is, I think. Or than my model says, at least.
Yeah, that's interesting. I can't really find a fault with Oklahoma's defense at all. They had one bad-ish game against Texas, and I think that was as much as anything as their offense just put so much pressure on them by being so bad in that game. Yeah, I don't know. I like the under here side. Yeah, I think Oklahoma's defense, I'm comfortable with that in terms of them holding down Ole Miss. They are pretty much one of the premier defenses here, so I'll play that under here. All right, Kansas State at Kansas. This is definitely one of those one-sided teams that I've mentioned. Total is 56.5. My models have this going pretty safely over. I've got, 65, and Athena's got 67. You've got a total of 59, so directionally it's okay. Kansas is, again, one of those kind of Air Force teams where not really good on defense. They're not nearly as bad as Air Force on defense. They've consistently been one of the best offenses. As I thought from going back to week 0, I said, okay, this Matt Lubick thing is going to work here. You've got a really good passing offense here. I think Kansas State has figured that out a little bit. And I say, look, I'll put it this way. Do I love Kansas State? Nah, but I think that they figured out enough to probably trade punches with Kansas here. As a reminder, your typical FBS game is a total of 53, so this is only a field goal over that. I'm pretty comfortable this goes over that safely, so I like unders better than overs, but this really feels like a good over game for me.
Yeah, this is obviously an in-state rivalry game as well. Kansas State's offense has gotten better. Kansas's offense is pretty good. Neither of these teams have particularly great defenses, except for when they played TCU for some reason. Other than that, no, I the over in this game. I'm on board with it.
Yeah. All right, boy, here we go again. Recurring theme: Arkansas, the Air Force of the SEC. Talk about a contrast in styles here. Auburn struggling on offense. Arkansas struggling to tackle anybody. Arkansas, as we mentioned, top offense in all of FBS. Auburn, their identity is defense. What's crazy is these numbers are almost the inverse of what we saw in that Oklahoma-Ole Miss matchup. This just feels like the numbers are just saying, look, Arkansas's offense is going to have the better of a good Auburn defense. Boy, negative 4.3 is really a bad defensive rating for Arkansas here too. The total is 57, which again, if you just look at what other Arkansas games have basically just been going week after week, they're scoring well into the 30s as their opponents. I guess the whole question here is, can Hugh Freeze and Jackson Arnold? This is interesting. Can they trade punches with Arkansas, or if maybe the other way to frame it is, if this total is 57 and Auburn's actually a 1-point favorite at Arkansas, this is what's interesting. This is telling me that they think that the Auburn defense really is going to do better than any other defenses that Arkansas has basically seen since Notre Dame. That narrative is hard for me to buy. How about you?
Yeah, if this is close, it's saying that generally, if it's a close game like that and you have a team that's been able to score a lot on offense and they have a pretty bad defense, I think that means it's going to be a lot of points scored, that's where the 57 comes from, to be fair. But I don't know where the -1 comes from. I will also note that Auburn was only 4.5 or 4-point dogs to Georgia, and now it's Auburn -1 at Arkansas. So what are you saying, that Georgia is only like a touchdown, like 10 points better than Arkansas? That's a side thing, but that's fine. But this is the thing. It's like, well, I don't know. For me, for this game to be close, because the traditional way you think of this game is Auburn's got a good defense, they're going to completely shut down Arkansas on defense, and then they're going to score a bunch because Arkansas has a bad defense. Then the spread would be a lot higher than just one. Mm-hmm. So either Auburn wins in a blowout or this is high scoring. You can't have both. You can't have both. So that's where I lean over in this. Just do the over. Watch some points being scored here.
Yeah, agree. The other thing too, it's at Arkansas, which I don't know if anybody's going to go in and really just shut down that Arkansas offense at Arkansas. It's not like they have to go into Auburn and really score their points here either. Another consideration. All right, NC State at Pitt. Pitt giving 7. The total is 58. My models have a total of 44 and 49, so safely under here. You've got this going over, and the one thing that concerns me is my numbers are basically a function of the entire season, and you've got more recency specifically at the quarterback spot, and that might be reason to give me a little bit of a pause, maybe make this a half a unit play, because Pitt, I remember their new quarterback, his first name is Mason. His last name was something Henschel or Menschel or something like that. I don't know. Very ethnic name. Definitely, I don't think his ancestors came over in the Mayflower. I'll just put it that way. So he's been good. I'll put it this way. When you've got this Apex Plus of 120, let's keep in mind that they benched Eli Holstein for a reason, and it wasn't for basically playing at this level. So I think you've got this quarterback that's really up the offensive play here. Now, Pitt's not running the ball, which is a little weird for a Pitt offense. Pitt's defense is this Apex Plus. This is good to very good for an AC defense. And they're really not giving up anything on the ground here. NC State has a nice quarterback, but they run the ball pretty well here. But overall, this is a pretty mediocre offensive rating here. Pitt's defense, as I mentioned for the last couple weeks, is a little bit overlooked, not overrated here. Total of 58. I like that it's actually going above 53, so they're expecting more than average. Again, I guess the question for you is, and how much should I worry about this, is like that new quarterback at Pitt that's just been a different kind of guy than Holstein. Does that give you enough pause to pass on this one, or do you think the under is a play here?
I don't know. I'm actually surprised my model has it at the 7 as well. I'll probably pass on this one. I don't want to bet on Pitt's defense being good. That doesn't seem like a great... You have them rated highly, but like on any given week, something weird could happen with Pitt. Right? Like, I'm fine betting on Pitt as like when they were a 9.5 or 10-point dog against Florida State. Yeah, sure, whatever. Let's have fun here. But when you put actual expectations on this team, that's when I get worried. Yeah.
Okay, fair. Yeah, you've got Narduzzi, and you've got a couple of wild cards there between the new quarterback and Narduzzi. Henschel, I think that's his name, Henschel.
I think
There's
so,
a T
yeah.
in there. Henschel. I got to study up on that on my drive home. All right, Minnesota at Iowa. Iowa giving 8 here. Total of 39, really low. You know what's interesting is I'd like your opinion on this. There's going to be a lot of job openings this year, and somebody made the point that if you look at the number of quality coaches, let's say, a lot of teams are going to be settling for not their first or second choice. And somebody said this is probably where PJ Fleck actually leaves Minnesota for a better job, which is interesting. I think we have to play this one first because I'm wondering who wants a coach who's an 8-point dog at Iowa. To this game real quick, I've got the total at 30. Athena's got it at 31. You've got the total at 39 right on the number here. You've got two pretty poor offenses here. I've got an elite Iowa offense or Iowa defense here. Minnesota is a little bit below average defense here, but it's not like Iowa can really take care of it, take advantage of it. This is your classic old Big Ten West matchup here. So I think I like the unders here. Iowa did not cover the under last week. Penn State with a really weird, literally, I don't know if did you see this, the dueling quarterbacks where they just alternated quarterbacks? Penn State did.
I didn't see
Iowa.
that, no.
Yeah, I don't know if that, who knows how much of a role that played, but maybe that was just Iowa's kind of less than standard game here. Iowa, the second game of a homestand here. I don't like this Minnesota offense. I think when push comes to shove, I don't think that Minnesota can really score points on the road, again, in most venues, let alone against this defense here. Not the most fun game to watch here, but I'm comfortable with the under here. But going back to the setup on this, do you think PJ Fleck, anybody's like clamoring to hire PJ Fleck?
Probably not, no. There's so much smoke about it that I feel like someone is going to make a really bad decision and do it. But I would not do that. And again, as I speak here as a Florida fan here, we are going to talk more about openings at a certain point. But if they hired PJ Fleck, I would be very sad about that. Yeah.
And maybe it's a secondary opening, and this is a bad example, but let's say that because this would be great to watch. But say that Florida hires Kiffin, and then I'm thinking like the secondary opening. Okay, Ole Miss then would hire a guy like a PJ Fleck. Now they would probably make a run at John Summerall, and maybe that's the thing where he falls into place. But I don't know how much of these secondaries are steps up from Minnesota. Also, how awesome would weird PJ Fleck be at a place like Ole Miss, by the way?
I feel like some of these ones are just like not great cultural fits for the South and then vice versa. So I don't know. But for me, I could see something like that. But the thing is, it's like, at what point is it a step, like, where is this? It's probably going to be a lateral, maybe a slight move down. Like, Arkansas would be one maybe, but at the same point in time, I think they're just going to go with Bobby Petrino. So they're going to clearly try to make it that for him. LSU maybe, but probably not.
To PJ Fleck?
I don't know. Like,
there's no way, dude. They would just riot.
Probably. I'm just trying, like, maybe UCLA, but UCLA I think is fine now. So this is where it's like there's only certain ones that would even be fits, right? And
is UCLA even a step up from Minnesota? Minnesota actually gets to keep all their media rights revenue. UCLA doesn't.
Yeah.
Minnesota has a 100-yard practice field. UCLA doesn't. Congratulations on winning 3 in a row here. Good for you guys, but let's be realistic about this job. It's just I don't know. I think he's kind of stuck there, right?
I agree. I think he is stuck there, but
yeah. All right. Well, and again, if Iowa wins by 8, who's really clamoring for him? That one didn't make sense to me. So thank you for talking me through that one. All right, this is interesting in that you've got. I think this would be the kind of the Sark statement of all gas, no brakes. You've got two teams that love to score, and none of them really like to play defense that much. In Baylor at Cincinnati, I look at this. Let me grab my pointer here. You've got basically two really good offenses and identical defensive ratings here. The only thing, these numbers are just Baylor's more explosive in the passing game. Cincinnati a little better running the ball. Whoops. Just almost identical in terms of defensive apex here. Neither team is really good against the run. A high-scoring game. 67.5 is a big number. That's 2 touchdowns above the average, but my model has 81. Athena's got the 84. You've got the modest total of 70 here. This feels like an Arkansas game that's breaking out somewhere else too, but I'm very happy going the over here. Two teams that basically they only are functional on one side of the ball, and that's with it and not against it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think this should be pretty high scoring. Cincinnati has definitely been in some pretty high scoring games, as has Baylor. This is just the pinnacle of that. This is just, we're going to just keep going. All gas, no brakes. We're just going to keep scoring.
Yeah, and Baylor's offense has been there all year. Their offense travels too. That's all they do, and they never give up too either on offense. The defense is really miss and hit, but yeah. So you feel confident enough to go over a big number here at 67.5, though?
It's a big number. I want to say yes because these guys, some of these teams, they just keep scoring. They score and score and score. It seems like a really high scoring game, so I probably go over here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is a big number, and then this literally could be like within a touchdown to going over at half at the same time. It just
Yeah, like it
some of
could
these
be
crazy
like
games.
this could be something like 28-21 at the half, and then you're like,
Yep.
oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Okay, that's it for the games that we're looking at week 9. The upset preseason upset predictions. Pardon me. Last week, Michigan did not win, did not cover. Washington did not win nor cover at Michigan. That was the only one that we had going last week. 3 games this week. My beloved Missouri State crutch to go win against my other crutch, going against New Mexico State. I like that one. Robert, how are you feeling about South Carolina over Alabama?
Yeah, not so good anymore. Bama is probably due for a loss somewhere, but I don't think it's going to be this week. I don't think it's going to be the South Carolina team, but we'll have
Where
to
is
see.
that game? Is that?
It's at South Carolina.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. At least in that it's not an easy venue to play at, and I think Carolina's defense is overlooked. So we'll see about that. I don't know if I think Carolina's got a puncher's chance. I just don't know if they can keep it together for 60 minutes. That's the thing. And a team like Alabama beating them, they've got such a good passing offense that it's tough to, to put a team like that away. And then Duck, boy, all credit to him. When he said this one, I felt sorry for the guy when he picked Cincinnati over Baylor, and he's already got closing line value. Cincinnati, as we just saw, giving 5.5 points to Baylor. So good for him. Good call by him. And that's it. Robert,
Yeah.
thank you for your flexibility and indulging me in beautiful Sedona here. You and Duck are trying to get an island time together without me this week, correct?
We are trying to, yes. We'll see.
So
We'll see what comes together.
keep an eye out for that, everybody. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We appreciate your loyalty. We promise to do better at some point. It might be 2026. We're hoping it turns around soon, though. But again, we really appreciate it. Love you guys reaching out to us on Twitter as well. Like hearing from you guys. Good luck this week, and we'll talk to you next week. Until then, be well.
See everybody.